Hi everyone, my name is Donald Vandermark and this is the kickoff book signing event at Books Inc. in San Francisco. It's March 16th and over the next 3 months I'm going to be traveling across the country, giving speeches, radio interviews, print interviews, and of course doing more of these book signing events. I'm thrilled if you can show up. We'll try and publicize as best we can where and when I'll be, and of course you can always go to donaldvandermark.com to get the latest in terms of my schedule. I hope you all get a chance to buy the book anyway, and at least learn more about these fantastic traits of the most admirable, creative, and joyous people. Cheers. So what do you want to know?
What inspired you?
I was in the news business for more than 20 years, and not until I went to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I interviewed a man named John Medlin, who was running Wachovia Bank, did I realize that really wonderful people can get it all the way to the top. I came out of the interview shocked that he was as nice, as gentlemanly, as authentic, as loved by his staff as anyone that you admire as a kid. And it made me rethink success and drive and ambition and who gets to the top. And then I moved to New York for CNN, and I was covering Wall Street. And again, every once in a while, someone would come through CNN, or I would go out and interview, and they would be just a marvelous person. And I would be struck, how did they get to this sort of position? And then I came out here, and I started interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. And as a class, there were more wonderful people. More people who really cared about the world, cared about the planet, cared about their communities, cared about different charities, cared about certain political causes that were very important to them. And I realized that they all started sounding the same to me. They were telling versions of the same stories. Their backgrounds were very, very different. They were all very different. It was men, women, old, young, foreign, American, all kinds of characters, very individual characters, but at the same time, there was a pattern recognition process going on in my mind. And I, at that point, started researching success and inspiration gurus. And I was studying all of them, and I was interviewing a lot of them. Stephen Covey, Deepak Chopra, and a whole roster of names that you wouldn't recognize. And I thought it was worthwhile to go back and read the originals. So one of the people I was reading is Abraham Maslow, who, if you don't remember him, and a lot of you probably do from your Psych 101 courses, was the father of humanistic or positive psychology. And he focused on the healthiest psyches, not the diseased ones. And near the end of his life, he died young, unfortunately, of a heart attack at the age of 60. He wrote a book called Motivation and Personality, and in it he listed 19 personality traits of people he considered to be exceptionally healthy, strong. And when I was reading this list, I thought to myself, there's Charles Schwab, there's Andy Grove, there's Steve Case to a certain degree, and there's someone else. And the pattern that I had been sort of collecting, the traits that I had been writing down, all were his traits with different names to them. And at that time I thought, there's a book. So here we are 9 years later, here's the book. Great. So what I like to do when people ask me about this is that inevitably they want to know what the traits are. And in this case, we're not going to go through that because that's a much longer presentation. I usually do a presentation for an hour which focuses on just 3 traits. But we are blessed tonight because the focus of one particular chapter and one particular trait is here with us. And that's Muriel Maff, or Maffray is the way people pronounce it here. Come on up, Muriel. You all know Muriel as a great ballerina with the San Francisco Ballet. Now, one of the traits that Maslow talks about is that really marvelous people, of course, understand the difference between practice and performance, or process and performance, planning and achievement. They understand goals, and they know how to achieve their goals. They're great goals. They take dreams, they turn them into goals, and then they prepare assiduously, and they actually create their own successes. This is one of the great things about individuals. Now, at the same time, and this is a subtle inversion of that discussion, is that they create lives where their day-to-day living is such that it delights them. they actually find a way to make the process an end in and of itself. Okay? Now, Muriel and Damien, last summer, decided that you would create, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
That we would create an installation in an art gallery, and that would reveal the process of work between two dancers and a choreographer. And what happened is, over the period of 13 days or 12 days, we revealed that process for 4 hours each day. And people would come in and out, and they would see us work things out and work things out between me and Damien, work things out with the choreographer, and just real time. And sometimes it was very slow, and sometimes it was very fast.
And the point was that ballet, which is this exquisite illusion in many respects, has a marvelous veneer which we all appreciate intensely. But there's something in the process that's also very, very valuable, according to Maslow and according to Muriel. So I want to read a section. This is from chapter 10. It's titled Tap Dance to Work. The trait is performance and process oriented. And the quote from Elbert Hubbard is, "We work to become, not to acquire." Muriel Moff is the poster child for process as well as performance. An unusually tall ballerina, at 6'4" on point, this cerebral French artist has defied expectations and become an international sensation. Her career has been defined by many successes. She danced for 17 years with the San Francisco Ballet as a principal, and upon retiring from the company in 2008, she received the highest honor a French artist can attain when she was named
Chevalier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres.
by the French Ministry of Culture. And yet for Moff, all of this is secondary. She dances because she is deeply in love with the process, not the honors, the adulation, or the applause.
It is very gratifying for me to de-emphasize the moment of the performance.
She says in her thick but elegant accent.
Which can be very beautiful, very rich and intense. But also, when you're a perfectionist, the performance can be very disappointing. By bringing focus and value to the process, I found a place where I could be gratified at all times with my work.
Abraham Maslow wrote that great human beings clearly distinguish between means and ends, between preparation and achievement, between process and performance. But they also find delight in their work. They are, quote, somewhat more likely to appreciate for its own sake, and in an absolute way, the doing itself. They can enjoy for its own sake the getting to some place as well as the arriving. This is wonderful because it supports the notion that you ought to do what you want to do, which is the gist of chapter 1 on autonomy. Even more compelling, the best among us invert that premise. They want to do what they ought to do. We'll get into this trait of responsibility or dutifulness in much more detail in chapter 14, but as Maslow puts it, among the best human beings, desires are in excellent accord with reason. Duty cannot be contrasted with pleasure, nor work with play when duty is pleasure, when work is play, and the person doing his duty and being virtuous is simultaneously seeking his pleasure and being happy. Moffre explained her devotion to process as an intensely personal revelation.
Process can be just the digging deeper and not the performance thing. Not showing you at your best every time and not having that goal necessarily. That can be vain.
These are striking words from a woman working in a world defined by vanity, presentation, and the pursuit of perfection. After all, ballet is a grandly constructed illusion where effortless grace is the goal, and yet Moff strives to strip the polish.
There is the luster, which is actually a barrier to seeing what is really authentic. There is a protection, there is a forcing to have you like it. It's selling something.
In those three senses, Moff articulates 5 traits that are shared among great, grounded human beings. Not only is she acutely aware of and sensitive to others, namely the audience, she's empathic. She also has a deep respect for them, she's egalitarian. She is as intent on the joy of creating a ballet as she is on performing it, creative and as well as process-oriented. Or creative and process as well as performance-oriented. She also sees through the artifice. She is realistic And finally, she is profoundly independent and true to herself. She's autonomous. Combining those traits with her talent adds up to an authenticity which is riveting. That's an amazing power from a dancer who was not even supposed to dance. Growing up in a small village west of Paris, Moffat started performing on an outdoor tennis court because the area had no theater. At the age of 9, she was accepted at the revered Paris Opera, but by 16 she had grown tall, a formidable 5'10".
I had a very formal education in ballet at the Paris Opera, and I think it made me very, very self-conscious.
The incessant criticism she received is what made her self-conscious. Ultimately, her instructors dismissed this prodigy, telling her,
"You're a beautiful plant, but you can't dance."
But even if the arbiters of ballet rejected this lanky artist, the art itself wooed her.
I fell in love with ballet, I fell in love with the physical aspect of ballet, and then through that, it took something away and brought something in. What it took away was a kind of ability to relate easily through words, through normal means of communication.
So Moff turned inward and focused on meaning as much as technique, what she calls a quality of intention for each and every movement. Despite her detractors, she created a life and a career
by really developing something that was completely in tune with who I was and cultivating that out.
That's a perfect rendition of the value of self-discovery and a self-directed life. And what irony, by forcing Moff to find more than physical perfection, her detractors diverted her toward her singular talent. For Moff, the dancer and the person, digging deeper is about finding the most genuine way of communicating ideas, emotions, and most profoundly, who she is. Authenticity is so powerful on stage because she says,
"It's you, it's the truth, it's who you are for real."
And we miss you on stage.
Thank you.
So anyway, that's a taste of the book, and there's several other famous people who embody certain traits. Charles Schwab, Andy Grove of Intel, Bill Bradley, the great senator. And the last thing I'll say is the epilogue is about someone who, when I mention her name, everyone seems to ooh and ah. And it's a woman who I think has embodied all 19 traits for decades, and that is Meryl Streep. And if you read what Meryl Streep has said, you'll see that her body of thinking is as impressive as her body of acting. It's really something to behold. So anyway, thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy the book. Please have a drink. Hey guys. That's enough. Thank you very much. Yeah. That's right. You read this book.
So my question was whether or not you interviewed anybody. She answered that question.